forged on the gridiron in September. Perfected in the magic of March. For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk, and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger Ten. Here's Steve Dace.
And greetings. Welcome to a special edition of Bigger Ten. I'm Steve Dace alongside my co-host and forever and ever partner, the one and only Aaron McIntyre. Aaron, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. It feels like March outside. I always have to begin with a comment about the weather because I grew up in the Midwest. And
that's what we do here.
That's what we do here. It feels exactly like March. It's not too cold, but it's not like warm enough to really feel great outside, which means that it's time for tournaments.
Just veg out and watch basketball all day. Exactly. Stuff is melting, kind of, soft ground, not a lot of, don't want to kind of be outside a lot yet. So perfect time to veg out, watch a crap ton of basketball, eat a crap ton of Cadbury mini eggs, not the things with the yolks, the little chocolate with the shells. Trust me, there's a big difference. One is dreadful. The other, a nectar of the gods, even though they're made by the exact same company. Weird. Anyway, this is, of course, a special edition, Aaron, because we are on the precipice of one of the biggest events on the Big Ten calendar each and every year, the Big Ten basketball tournament. And this could very well be the craziest year I can ever remember. I mean, I don't even know who I'd bet to win this. I guess because I could literally see, I wouldn't rule Wisconsin. What are they, the 12th seed? I wouldn't rule them. Would you rule Wisconsin just winning five games in a row by 55 points?
I wouldn't rule anybody out except for Minnesota, probably.
Exactly. And it's because it's been that kind of a year. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio State was a top 10 team in December. They're playing Wednesday night as a 13. So it has been a crazy year in the Big Ten. One of the craziest I can ever remember. I look at Purdue, and congrats to them. They've extended now their all-time lead in Big Ten championships. They earned it with Zach Edey. But take Zach Edey off that team, and they're basically Wisconsin. So this has been a nuts year. I think we're going to have, therefore, a complete carnage of a tournament. So I thought we would spend the entire episode going through my projected bracket of what I think is going to occur, and then you get to say, is that pick fake news or not?
Okay, sounds good. And then at the end of this, I've got the odds actually on DraftKings.
Okay.
You can get odds for winning the Big Ten tournament, and so I'll get your immediate reaction once we go through this.
You bet. Let's start with Wednesday night. All right, so I'm going to take Ohio State, which has been playing better as of late. Of course, when you lost 8 in a row, there was only one way to go at that point. But they have been playing better as of late. I will take them in a slight lean over the Badgers of Wisconsin and Nebraska, which has been the hottest team in the Big Ten since basically February 1. When have we ever said that? Never. I'll answer my own question. Never is the answer. Nebraska, still though, despite how great they've played this year, you're talking about, would they win 9 Big Ten games? They've averaged barely 4.5 wins in the league since they entered. So a great season for them. They're still playing on Wednesday night, though, but I think they absolutely roll Minnesota. You disagree with either one of these two, fake news or not?
Agree with Nebraska. This is going to be a recurring theme. This is the only time of the year where I allow myself to go a little bit fun, not like $5, $10 bets on just underdog money lines, whether it's live betting or before the game, underdog money lines. And I think whatever team is the underdog that Wednesday night in the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, put a little bit of money on them or take the points, because I think it just depends on how ugly of an ugly stick Wisconsin brings to that game.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to Thursday. First game of the day, Michigan and Rutgers. So these two were supposed to play the first game on the Thursday of the 2020 Big Ten tournament. And a lot of people wondered if that might be a game where the winner is in the NCAA or not. Of course, that game never got played because of COVID. A rematch here, I will take Michigan over Rutgers, which just frankly has not been the same team. A couple of key injuries for the Scarlet Knights, and they've always been a little limited offensively. Now they're not as locked down on the defensive end either. I think Michigan comes back and gets the win over Rutgers. I like Iowa to bounce back after a weird final week. I mean, you go to Bloomington and just get one of your best wins against Indiana ever on the road. Then you come home and lose at home to Nebraska. It's that kind of year in the Big Ten, man. It's that kind of year in the Big Ten. I'll take Iowa to bounce back against the Buckeyes. I'm going to go with Illinois over Penn State, largely because the game's in Chicago and they'll have the home crowd. And then I'll take Nebraska along the lines of what you just said, but with the other side of the bracket. Maryland's a good team, but to me, they're also a team of like a lot of the same guys. They're all like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I think Nebraska pulls the upset of Maryland on Thursday night. Thoughts on my picks for these games?
So I think Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, and Maryland would all be favored. I would put a little bit of money, either points or money line, on all of the underdogs. I think the Iowa-Ohio State game, that's something where Iowa wins by like 20 or loses outright. I think it's one of those types of things.
I could definitely see that for sure.
And I can see Iowa losing that game easily. Michigan, you make a good case. I mean, you're right. Rutgers has just not been the same. But again, Juwan Howard, if Rutgers can just keep this thing close. What is his record? 1-12 in one possession games.
We're going to get to that. Yeah.
So that's one of those things where it's like, hey, if you're watching this game live betting and it's within 2 to 3 possessions with like 10 minutes left in the game, put a little on Rutgers maybe. Illinois over Penn State. I believe Penn State actually went on the road and beat Illinois earlier this year.
Yep.
So I wouldn't just make that a shoe-in, and I'm not saying that you are. I wouldn't just.
I don't think any of these are shoe-ins.
Correct. Yeah. So, in the Nebraska over Maryland, that one's a little bit of a reach, but I appreciate the upset pick there. I would probably go with Maryland in that game, though.
Here's a prop bet for you right here, live on the show. Ready? Didn't tell you this was coming.
Sure.
Okay. Take Minnesota off the table, and I just have you flip a coin for every other game in this Big Ten tournament bracket, and you would end up with essentially the exact same record as if you actually picked the games against the spread with your own analysis.
Agreed. I mean, make this league this year make sense. Purdue, I don't want to step on you because I think I know what you're going to say about Purdue, so I'll leave them aside. Everybody else in this league get on a 2-game win streak, lose inexplicably a couple of games, and then go on a 3-game win streak, and everything's looking up. It's just incredibly inconsistent, fits and starts the entire year long. I mean, just look at Iowa. As of, I think, Wednesday of last week, they could have been a 2 seed or a 9 seed. That's how crazy this is.
Michigan was in the same situation.
Yep.
Michigan winning this week, it could either be the 2 seed. Well, frankly, it could have actually shared the championship if Purdue lost twice. That's nuts, okay? But Michigan, after Purdue won, could have either been the 2nd seed or the 9 seed. Dave Revson at the Big Ten Network said last Sunday night, heading into the final week, Aaron, there were over 65 different potential brackets for the Big Ten tournament.
I believe it.
65. All right, let's get to Friday then and the quarterfinal round. Let's address the elephant in the room here with the very first game. You're going to accuse me, everyone watching this, of being a homer. You need to understand where I am at right now. I'm actually going against my instincts. So last week, Aaron, I made the biggest single game bet I have made on a game this year. I put $700 on Indiana money line, anticipating we would lose. You remember I did this in football a couple times last year, the emotional hedge.
I had Indiana minus 3.5, and they missed like 10 free throws at the end of the game.
Yeah, I didn't want to worry about that, so I just did the money line and took the extra juice. But I did this a couple games. I thought we could lose Nebraska. Thought we could lose Penn State. I already had TCU in the playoffs, so I didn't need to do it there. But the games I thought we could lose, I did the emotional hedge just in case we did. So because I thought if I came back and won a few $100, it would make it feel better, right? Well, in this case, I won $1,200. I was so pissed, dude. I had to finally just walk away from my Twitter account, turn the TV off. Like, fire Juwan. You just mentioned it. 1-12 in one-score games in his career. If you have never coached a college basketball game in your life, ever, congratulations. You have exactly one less one-possession win as a head coach than Juwan Howard. 1-12. Would we freaking hire Scott Frost? Yeah, actually, we kind of did. They just invent ways to lose these close games. And by the way, when you get to 2-possession games, his record's not very good there. It's not 1-12, but it's not very good there either. So I'm down on him big time right now. I mean, I even tweeted out last week, I just don't think he can coach. I love him. I loved him as a player. I love his life story. I love him as a leader of men. Can we get a leader of men that you can actually, if I see one more Michigan timeout at the end of games, Aaron, where the only shot we get is a lunging 40-footer, I swear, goodbye, cruel world will be my final words. All right. He can't get his players to execute. And it's not just this team. This has been and go back and look at the team a couple of years ago that ran through the Big Ten when he won National Coach of the Year. Almost all of those games were blowouts. They cannot win games at the end. He can't get them to execute. So I promise you, I am more negative on Michigan basketball right now than probably anybody watching this here on Bigger Ten. So I'm going against myself because my instinct is to pick them to lose the very first game against Rutgers. This does remind me a little bit, though. Not the year that they had the plane crash and they came out and won the tournament. The year before, so in 2013, Michigan gets the championship game, should have won it against Louisville. 2014, Michigan wins the Big Ten outright. 2015, Michigan loses to New Jersey Institute of Technology and doesn't make the NCAAs. 2016, it looks like the program is toast, that John Beilein has kind of run his race and it's capped out. They get to the Big Ten tournament. All right, they win the 8-9 game on Thursday to get on the bubble. They play the number 1 seed on a Friday. You know who it was?
Purdue.
Played the number 1 seed on a Friday in Purdue, hit a last-second shot to pull the upset and got in the NCAA tournament. And just when I thought the program was toast, that shot goes in. Michigan makes the tournament. And then, of course, the next year, they go on another run with John Beilein all over again. And this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So you know me well enough to know my homer stuff is to actually get way too down on my teams.
Sure.
So I think Purdue is a great story. I don't think they're that great of a team. I think they have the best player. And I think if Zach Edey played for about 9 other teams in the Big Ten this year, Aaron, they would have won the outright Big Ten championship. So that is my long-winded explanation for that very first pick. Your thoughts?
So there's only a couple of teams that I can think of off the top of my head who have the size somewhere to make Zach Edey impede him to the basket. Let's just say that. One is Indiana, who swept Purdue, and the other is Hunter Dickinson at Michigan. When you were telling me before the game, the game that they had against each other was fairly close this year. And I believe that was actually really early on in the season, too, if I remember correctly. So this is not a stretch. I would still take Purdue here, but it's not a stretch, the case that you're making at all.
Let's get to the rest. It's March, so Michigan State will do something. I mean, that's this, Tom Izzo's not what he was in March back in the day, but he's still a force. So Michigan State gets the win over Iowa. Illinois Northwestern lights up the city of Chicago. I'll take the Illini to win that game as well. And then Indiana off the double bye ends up beating Nebraska and ending their mini Cinderella run. That's what I think happens on Friday.
Agree on Indiana. Northwestern and Illinois. I would love to see Northwestern pull the upset in their home city against Illinois, which is... they've had their, like everybody else, their ups and downs. But I would actually, I think that's another boom or bust game. I think it's Illinois by 10-15, or Northwestern barely wins or keeps it, within one possession. I don't know why, crazy voices in my head. I would actually rather Iowa play Michigan State than Ohio State in the opening round. I think Iowa the last few seasons has given Tom Izzo tons of fits. And I'm not just talking about that stupid comeback you'll never see again in 100 years, a couple of weeks ago. Just the last 2 or 3 years, for whatever reason, Michigan State has had its troubles against Iowa. After actually owning Iowa for the first part of Fran McCaffrey's tenure at Iowa. So I would put a little bit of money on, again, whoever is the underdog in that game. I'll say the same thing against any other game as well. Otherwise, I think the only kind of lock that I see there is Indiana over Nebraska.
Which brings us to the semifinals on Saturday. I'll take Michigan State to bounce back. The Spartans, of course, played Michigan first game after the shooting tragedy there, and were leading a lot of that game, and then Michigan just got really hot down the stretch and pulled away. I think Michigan State comes back on Saturday and gets revenge to make it to the championship game, and they play Indiana, who essentially beats Illinois in a road game and marches on to the finals of the conference tournament.
So again, all of these are coin flips, like you said before. I do kind of like Indiana though in this spot. They got, I think, to the semifinal. Yeah, they got to the semifinals last year before Jordan Bohannon hit that late three to knock them off. I just think if you've got Trace Jackson Davis, who probably should have been in a little closer consideration for in terms of best player in the Big Ten with Zach Edey, but I think they've got a pretty good chance path to Sunday, and then Michigan State over Michigan. I don't know, man. I think if Michigan has gotten to this point, they've won 2 games in 2 days. They've got to be feeling a little bit confident after losing a couple heartbreakers here to end the season. I wouldn't count them out immediately. I might actually bet them against Michigan State. But again, you've got probably a Hall of Fame coach against a coach that's 1-12 in one possession game. So I understand if you want to go the other way.
That brings us to Sunday. I have the Hoosiers, the preseason Big Ten consensus favorite, who didn't win the league but did sweep Purdue for the first time in a decade, and the Boilermakers did win the championship. The Big Ten's postseason title stays in the Hoosier State as well. Indiana cuts down the nets, beating Michigan State and Tom Izzo for the championship.
All right. Yeah, I'm good with that. If that's the way, if it's Indiana versus Michigan State, I would take Indiana. What do you think Indiana, the odds are right now that they win the tournament?
I'll say plus 600.
They're plus 500.
So close.
Yep. Michigan State plus 600. So if you bet those two, and this comes to fruition, that's a pretty good payday.
So there's only 100. There's only one odd slot difference.
Yeah.
Between a team that's a consensus top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament and Michigan State that's probably looking at playing in an 8-9 first round game.
It's weird.
That just goes to show you how wide open this is, which means you almost don't bet anybody if it's that wide open, right?
Yeah. So
unless you think someone's got a very favorable draw.
Yeah. Let me. So Purdue is plus 160. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Next is Indiana at 5-1. After that is Michigan State at 6-1. So Vegas, in terms of these rankings, are kind of tracking with you.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland is next at 7-1.
Yeah, I definitely would fade that for sure.
Northwestern,
I'd fade that for sure.
9.5-1.
Yeah.
Illinois 12-1.
See, that's a bet I might look at making, especially with it being in Chicago. I might take a flyer on that. Sure.
Iowa 16-1.
I think no. I just don't think. Well, we know this
There's
every
no
year defensively, but yeah, I just
There's no consistency. Michigan 18-1.
Man, gosh, wouldn't that be the freaking Michigan thing to do?
Just $5.
$5 on them, $10. So it's 18-1.
Yep.
All right, I'd take a flyer on that. Yeah.
Rutgers 22-1.
No, I think they're kind of done.
Penn State 25-1.
I don't know though. Could they get hot one weekend in Chicago from 3?
For 25-1, sure.
For 25-1.
60-1 for Wisconsin. 60-1 for Ohio State.
Huh. I'm not so sure I wouldn't put $10 on Wisconsin at 60-1.
Nebraska 250-1. And Minnesota, I think 1,000-1.
Huh. So who's your pick?
In terms of betting or overall?
Overall. Looking at the bracket, who do you like?
I think this is Indiana's year. So I'd agree with your pick. They made a run last year during the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I think other than their inexplicable loss to Iowa last week, they've actually been one of the more consistent teams down the stretch here in the Big Ten. So I would trust them. I would fade about half the teams, and I would maybe put money on. I think I'll probably put $5 on 3 or 4 of these futures bets. So, and I think Michigan State, Indiana 6 and 7-1. I'm not sure about that, but I'll probably just for fun put a little bit of money on my Hawkeyes, a little bit on Illinois, and then a little bit on Penn State.
Well, good stuff. And now the fun begins. The madness has arrived. We're in the midst of championship week, even at the time that we are taping this. Big Ten tournament gets underway on Wednesday all the way through Sunday. And then we'll find out what the field is, how many Big Ten teams get in to the field of 68 for the 2023 NCAA tournament. We'll have all those games previewed right here next week on Bigger 10. Yes, I will have my annual tips for winning your bracket. That will be next week's episode of Michigan Podcast, because we're not anticipating Michigan being in the NCAA tournament. So we need something, and that's where that's going to go this year. All right, so look for that and more right here on this channel. Please don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, follow, share, 5-star review, no matter how you watch, like right here on Bigger 10 on YouTube, or you listen like on iTunes. Help us to spread the word, find more Big Ten sports fans just like yourself. And don't forget, we like hearing those 5-star reviews as well. And thank you for all the kind words you say about the show constantly, and the unkind ones in the comments. We appreciate those too. Follow us on Twitter at Bigger10, where we have kind and unkind comments. Until the next time, I'm Steve Dace. He's Aaron McIntyre. We will see you next week when we have the dance card right here on Bigger 10.